All right, so today we're going to take our log data and save it to a text file. And first we're going to save it to a CSV file, which is, what does that stand for? Anybody know what the comma separated view, I think, is CSV. So all it is a flat text file that has commas between each field. And Excel, for instance, will be able to read that file directly in. And I'll show you how we can get a file from the Android and put a file back on the Android so we can play with it a little bit better. So the first thing we need to do is hook up our view so that we have our Save to File button do something. So we need to change that on click for our Save Wait button. So our on click is going to go to a method that we're going to write. I'm going to call it Save Log On Click. I'm not keeping to a file convention at all here. I don't know why. So we need a method, and we'll put it anywhere in here, but it's going to be a public void save log on click, and anything that comes from an on click takes a view as a parameter. Swave, I don't want to swave it, I want to save it. There we go. So suave. This is the method now that's going to get called when we click the button, right? So this is where we need to get the data from the view, create a string for it, and then write that string out to a file. So this is fairly simple. Writing out to a file is fairly simple in Java. So let's create a string just for the name of the file, and I'm going to call it wait_log.csv. So that'll be the name of our file that it saves on the Android operating system directly, and I'll show you where it saves that. And then we need a string, which is the data that we're going to save, and I'm going to call it entry. So what are we going to save? What I wanted to save was the date, the time, and the weight to this, with a comma between each value. So how do I get the date from the view? I look at the date view, and I call getText on it, right? And I call toString on it. getText toString, and that is the date as it was formatted on the view in that edit view. Then I just want to concatenate a comma. Very simple, right? And then I get the time, and we get the text from that, and we toString that. And then the final, then we need a comma between that field. And then we need to add, finally, what? The weight. So that's edt weight dot getText dot toString. And finally, we want each of these records to be on their own line. So how do I add a line? Tell this that this is an end of a line. Right? A /n inside of a double quotes. Right? So that's a long string. Let's put it on multiple lines here. Let's see. I don't want to. Let's do it this way. So this is my long string. I like to line all of these up. So that's my entry string, and that's the data that I'm going to save to the file. So I just need to now open a file, and this is a lot like Ruby. You're going to open a file calling an operating system routine. We need to get a file stream or a file pointer, let the operating system open the file for me in a particular mode, and then I'm going to save that to that file. and I'm going to close the file. So that's the steps that I'm going to do, just like in Ruby. So of course we need a try catch, because anything we do with the operating system is bad. So we're going to have an exception, and for this exception I'm just going to call this function called print stack trace. So if anything happens, that's a bad error. It's going to probably crash anyway, so let's just stop it. So I first need to, there's an object called a file output string. File, sorry, that's not it. File output stream. File output stream. And of course, we don't have the package, so we have to Alt-enter it. I found it once. There we go. Alt-enter. There we go. So that adds the package to my includes up at the top. And we'll call it out. That's just the name of my little file pointer. And we call this open file for output. And we tell it the file name that I want. And I've got a file name string that I've declared already here. And then we need to pass it this file mode. And there's a bunch of them, just like in Ruby. We can write it, open it for writing only, or for reading only, or for appending, or we can create the file. And the one we want is mode append, because what that does is it will create the file if it doesn't find it, and it will append to the file if it's already there. So we don't want to delete it. That's our best option, right? So the first time somebody runs this, it will create the file and allow me to write to it. And then the second time, it's just going to append to that file. So then all we have to do is call out.write, which is similar to our out.puts, right? We're calling a method on this out object. And we just need to print the value of our string, but we have to send it as bytes to the output stream. So we call this method getBytes, entry.getBytes. All right? Aren't they great? They're like nibbles. Yes. And a string could actually be, see, we in America are spoiled in that our bytes and strings are the same. But a string could be a Unicode string that has multiple bytes per character. And so that's why they write the bytes out instead of the string. So we're going to close the file, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Pretty simple, huh? Right, it is. So the hard part is reading in from the file. Oh my God, that took me hours to get that to work right. So we'll work on that later. But yeah, it's just fun stuff. So there's so many ways of doing this. This is one way of doing it. So let's go run it, see if it actually works. And I also want to, so let's run my Hello Android and let that get started. There's a tool, well, under the Android that says monitor, DDMS included. All right, so I want to run that as well. So that's under Tools, Android, Monitor, DDMS included. And that's going to open up another window that lets me look at all kinds of stuff on the virtual device. What, it launched a new one? Why did it launch a new one?
I've had it do that to me before.
I launched it for you. Great. So that's going to take a while.
It did it when I took too long to actually upload any code to it.
Oh, really?
Like I had the emulator running for a little bit and had gone out of cigarette and made a couple of changes, and then I tried running it and it starts up a new instance of it. I'm like, but it's sitting.
Denton packs. All right, so here's my my system. Let's trace it all the way through. If I have 180 here pounds, and I go to my weight logger, that should pass it through the intent. Remember that? Through that intent structure to my next activity. And it did. So now I should be able to click Save Weight. And it should have saved that value. Now, what would be a good thing to show here?
At least a toast.
A toast. Something that lets the user know they actually saved it, right? So let's go, this monitor that came up, this Android debug monitor that we launched, lets us look at the emulator. So this is a File Explorer tab, and that all of that information is stored in this folder called data, and then the package name of our particular application, which in our case was this Hello Android. So I open that. Now all of these are files that I can control now. Everything that my app creates is put in this files directory. And lo and behold, there's my weightlog.csv file. Isn't that sweet? So let's copy that, and we can move files to and from the CSV, to and from this file system on the emulator or a real device. And we can use these little buttons up here. Pull a file from the device or push a file onto the device. So I'm going to click on this guy and pull it and save it to my desktop. All right. So now if we look at the file, where'd it go? There it is. All right, there's my weight logger. And the operating system thinks it's an Excel file because it ends in a .csv extension. So let's just open it, and there we go. Look at that. I've got my date, my time, and my weight. Sweet. Isn't that beautiful? So let's look at it in just a straight text editor like Notepad++, and you notice that it has the carriage return on the end. So it's ready for the next logger when they hit the button again to write a new entry here, right? So we needed that carriage return, otherwise it would just keep appending to this. All right? Isn't that sweet? Yep. You would be very strange. All right, isn't that cool? So that's why this package name is important. It's got to be unique, and why most people use their website, com.lockersoft. Whatever. You can have multiple dots here, but that gives me my local file space that I can play with. Yeah, it would be something unique would be better for me. Yeah, it would be a lot better, yes. If you named your package something, maybe your last name or something like that.
The last part's probably going to be pretty much the same for all of us.
Yep. So let's pick a different time and see if our time picker still works. It does. So let's pick a couple seconds in the future and say that I gained weight just standing on the scale, and I save my weight again. Then I go look at my system here, and I have to refresh it, but now I have 48 bytes. That's how big it is, right? So now I've got 2 lines in that file. Pardon me? Did it? I was just impatient. So let's save it again. There it goes. So every time I add a new line, it's going to get that. So let's retrieve it just to make sure we're getting the right information. Let's pull that back to the desktop, replace what I had, open it in Excel, and there we've got 3 lines of data. Sweet! Isn't that great? That's beautiful. It works. It's a miracle. The first try, even. It's amazing. All right, any questions on what we did here?
You still have to code for a blank weight entry there, though.
Yes, right. Yeah, you'd have to make sure that they actually had data. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to save bad data.
That'd be another good toast.
Yeah. So let's add a toast here. And we have we need this type of code here. I thought I made that into a utility at one point.
You did, and it toasted.
Yeah, it's right there.
But
Yeah, that's it.
I thought I had it as a separate class. Maybe I didn't. So let's add our toasted here at the bottom. And import the package it needs. And this is now not going to be my activity. It's going to be the weight logger. Context. And then we'll put it inside of the try, because that makes sense, right? Entry saved, something like that. Doesn't have to be a big deal. So that gives some feedback to the user that they don't have to keep clicking the button, right? So let's see if that works.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock, by the way.
Thank you, Siri.
Say wait, get a nice little entry saved, alarm, alert, and that goes away eventually. And our monitor is now up to 96. So that's our log file is saving fine. Isn't that great? All right. Any questions on the whole saving to a file? That part seems pretty simple, right? Way to go, fatty. Yeah. No. All right. So let's
That's not how you sell it.
let's move on and take a little side trip in how to draw on the screen in a little window. All right. So what we want to do is add a new activity so that we have a whole window to draw on, so that when they click on a chart button, it's going to draw the chart, the graph of their weight over time. That's our ultimate goal. Okay, so to do that, we need to create some type of a button, some way of getting to that new activity, right? So let's add a button to our, not that one, to the weight log, the weight view.
You're there.
I am there. Oh, that was going back to the previous. So I need another button here. So I'm going to add a button, and we'll just put it at the bottom of this row. And we'll call it weight chart. And maybe BTN chart for its ID. And we need something to happen when that occurs. So we're going to look at the on click, and we're going to say we want that to be, I call it switch to chart. So that'll be the method that will get executed. So let's create a new method. Public void, and again, since it came from this button, this on click always has a view as an input. And we're going to do, just like we've done before, we need to create the intent and switch to the chart and all of that kind of good stuff, right? So let me get my code up here. So we need to create a new intent. I'm going to call it chart. And we say new intent. This. And then the class that we're going to intend to open. So we need to create a new class for this. And we'll call it the weight chart class. Weight chart dot class is what we pass. Now, it can't find it, so we have to create this new class here. All right, so in our project, we need to create a whole new Java file, a new Java class, and we'll call it weight chart. And we need to get some of the same kind of code that we had. We're going to extend this from the activity. So we'll put that into our weight chart. It extends our activity. And then the first method we need always is this onCreate, right? So we're going to create this and maybe even our initialize view here. All right. So and then this view has is code we're going to write in a little bit. So our last weight logger should have, let's see, weight logger for my switch to chart. Now it finds the weight chart, so that's okay. Let's finish writing that part. Once I create the intent, I have to start the activity, right? And I pass it the intent that I want to start, which is called chart. All right, so that's all I need to switch to the new activity. And now everything else is going to be written inside of my weight chart here. All right? So I also need to tell it that this is, well, it's already done for me, my Android package. And what's the last thing I need to do when I create a new activity like this? Do you remember? No? Yeah, we got all that. It's clicking, it will launch this. But I have to tell the overall application that I now have another activity in my system. And so that's in the manifest file. And we just have another activity that we're going to add to this. And its name is going to be dot, whatever the class that I had, weight chart, right? And we're going to close that activity. Right? So we have to tell our main manifest that that's the case. All right? Yes, we have to change this too, right? One more thing to do. So we need a new XML file that is just a blank screen that we're going to draw on. So we need to create a new layout. And I'm going to call it weight chart. And we'll choose the default linear layout. Is fine. That's all it has in it. We don't want anything else. But in our main activity view now, we need to change it to load that. So our weight chart, we need to load weight chart as the XML file for this particular view. All right, now I think we got it all. Let's run what we have to make sure that at least we have this started. It should start our chart view. As we wait, we need like the Jeopardy music or something while this waits. Thank you, Andy. So we go to our weight logger, which switches intents eventually. Then we go to our weight chart. Which should launch our blank intent. So there we go. Now we've got a blank screen that we could draw on. We could start using this to draw on this canvas here, this view. All right, and to get back, we hit the back button, and it should take us back to whoever launched that intent, which was our logger. All right? Any questions on that? You guys should be getting good at creating views by now, new activities. When you finally create one, yeah. All right, so in the world of drawing, we have this concept called a paint object. So we need a paint object, and we're going to call it paint, for lack of a better name. And we need to load that whole paint. Yeah, I know. It does it randomly. It's kind of there we go. All right, so that imports the package. And inside of our initialized view, let's do it inside of here. I like to keep that separate. We're going to set that to equal a new paint object. All right, so now paint actually has something in it. You could do it up at the top. And then we can set some properties now in this paint object. This is what defines the overall graphics properties before we draw something. So we have to have things like a color. So we can call a set color. And there are some built-in colors like black. Yes, you can use the standard RGB values. Yes. Yes. And so this is one of these built-in, built-in properties for that's a color. So if you look at color, there's a lot of things. We can set a red, green, and blue values, and it will convert that into a color. We can set HSV. And then these are some built-in colors that are hard-coded, black, blue, dark gray, etc. All right. So we're setting this color, and then we can set things like its stroke width. So we have these little brushes that we can play with. So we want to set the stroke width, and we can set that to 1. That's 1 pixel. And then this is a new feature we haven't talked about. We can call the Android system and request that we have different features for this particular window. And one of them that's popular is to call the feature no title. Look at all of these features that we can have. So no title, that will create this view without this title bar at the top.
Is there a way to just change the name on that and not affect the other views?
Yes. All right, so that will give us more room. All right. And then, now this is where it gets complicated. Nothing is easy, right? So we need to tell this particular view what class to use that defines all the drawing that goes on top of this view. All right, so there's this other class called panel, which subclasses view, and the panel then is a class that we can modify the drawing on, so that when the operating system wants to draw this window, we tell it all the lines and all the circles we want to draw on that. Right? So we have to do this using this set content view. This gets a little complicated. And we're going to create one of these new panels. And this panel is going to be a class that we're going to create inside of our class. So we have a class called weight chart, which is an activity. And inside of this, we're going to create a new class that, you can have a class within a class. And we're going to call it panel. And it's going to extend this view object. All right, so we need to load in the view package. All right, and we have to create a constructor for this. You guys remember your constructors? We create a new panel that takes the context as a property, and all it does is call its papa. All right, so this is the default constructor for this panel. And we have to get it to load our context here. All right, jeez, painful, huh? All right, and now this panel has all of the properties. It's a subclass of this view, right? So we need to override the method called onDraw. And it gets a canvas as its property, as its painful, huh? I told you. And we import our canvas. Now, finally, using the canvas, which is on top of the panel, which is extended from the view, we can now draw on this panel. All right. So whenever the operating system decides that this view needs to be drawn, and in this case, whenever the activity comes to the forefront, this onDraw will finally get executed. And the onDraw is where we can draw our lines and set more colors and draw text on the page and all kinds of stuff. So there's different things we can do in here. I can set my draw color to white. This is the background color of the view. And then I can say, let's draw a circle. and we give it the x and y coordinates and the radius, and then that paint object that was globally defined for this. That was defined above in the class above it, so it's available to the class inside of it. All right, so let's see if that works. Let's see if we finally have a circle on our view. Bummer. No sound for you. It should work in the, if you had headphones, right? They just don't have external speakers, is all. All right, go to our logger. And now you can see why we need some activity bar, because I have to go through 3 screens to get to my chart. Oh, I got a crash. Look at that. Yeah, you kind of do. So, no, my data is not being used yet. So I died. It just died on me. So I'll have to figure out why we're... Huh? Yeah, I'd have to go launch it again now that I have this open.
Mine doesn't like the window dot feature no title.
Oh, really?
That's what it's crashing on for me.
Really?
I'm gonna comment that out and see.
Let's try that. It's worth a try. Works on my Mac. Macs are broken. The launcher even stopped. Nice. Come on. Probably. Come on. I want to see a circle. Weight logger. Weight chart. Yay! I have a circle. Isn't that beautiful? It only took 30 or 40 lines of code to get a circle on the darn screen. Isn't that beautiful? All right. So we'll continue on with this tomorrow. Oh,